Welcome friends. This is a web novel. Imagination is key to enjoy it fully. Please like, subscribe and gives your feedback.
Time for a new enchantment. Enchanting menu. New enchantment. ISEKAI. Tool becomes stronger for every consecutive swing, max 3. I wasn't exactly sure what it meant by the tool getting stronger. I just assumed that it meant that it would make a greater impact and become easier to swing. It appeared to be a pretty nice ability, so I was happy with it. I spent 10 more tokens for another enchantment. Enchanting menu. New enchantment. Sharp Eye. Increase sharpness of tool by 35%. It was another pretty decent enchantment. Increased sharpness will make it easier for me to cut into trees. I didn't really have anything else I wanted to use the enchantment stone on, so I decided just to put it onto the axe. I doubted I'd ever use a weapon aside from manhwarecap or another demonic weapon, so it would be useless otherwise. I took the enchantment stone out of my inventory and smashed it onto my enchanted, fine logger's axe. As soon as the two items collided, a bright blue cloud formed in the middle and the enchantment stone disappeared. +1 enchantment slot. Suddenly, my fine logger's axe was ready to receive another enchantment. Without any hesitation, I opened my enchantment menu and spent 10 more tokens. Enchanting menu. New enchantment. Fortune Eye. Increase resources collected by this tool by 50%. Ah, that would be useful. Now my axe was certainly quite stacked. It had 3 enchantments and its own passive ability, so it was pretty good for collecting resources. I decided that whenever I got free time, I would simply go over to the forest and start cutting down trees. It was the best way to increase the speed of my progression. I summoned my enchanted, fine logger's axe to my hand and raised it towards a tree. In one smooth motion, I swung the axe into the trunk of the tree. It slashed into the fibers of the tree, completely cutting it down in one swing. +21 wood. It was quite hard to swing the axe though. Compared to my enchanted, silver pickaxe, the axe caused a lot more strain on my arm, mostly due to the weight. I walked over to the next tree and swung again. +24 wood. Ah, my arms were already struggling after 2 mere swings. It seemed that the lightweight enchantment was certainly quite important. I could technically go back and try to get the lightweight enchantment, but it would likely incur quite a heavy cost in terms of tokens. In the end, I decided to just deal with the weight. It did help in terms of momentum to cut the tree down in one strike. It was getting somewhat late in the afternoon. +24 wood. +1 coal. Well, I guess it was a 10% chance and not once in every 10 chops. The tree came tumbling down to the ground. I guess I'd get my minions to clean this up once I'm done. +24 wood. I continued to go around cutting down trees and collecting wood. I didn't much care about the wood, but the coal and diamond would be useful in the future, so I wanted to gather as much of that as possible. Their sell prices were quite high even if I didn't want to use them. Shop. Sell. 1x, wood equals 0.01 tokens. 1x, coal equals 0.5 tokens. 1x, diamond equals 3 tokens. At this rate, I would usually be able to gather around 33 tokens for every 100 trees I cut down. I was already getting tokens at a pretty quick rate just from my minions, so I was around the point where I didn't really have much else to spend them on. I checked my inventory and saw that I had over 100 tokens at this point. I could buy anything I wanted from the shop. Shop Plus refreshes every day. Elite Minion Upgrade Token, 30 tokens. Spear Minion Recipe, 7 tokens. Warrior Minion Recipe, 40 tokens. Grand Exchange. I looked in the shop and noticed that the price for warrior minions was significantly higher than the recipes for the other minions. There was a much cheaper recipe for spear minions. I wasn't exactly sure what the reason for this discrepancy was. My assumption was that spear minions were weaker than warrior minions, however, I couldn't be certain. The one thing that interested me the most was the Elite Minion Upgrade Token. I didn't really know what that was either, but it sounded quite useful. I had lots of tokens to spare, so I bought one. As I made the purchase, the item was transferred into my inventory. There was a description of the product. Use this on an elite minion to upgrade it. Alright, I guess I'd do it. I decided to use it on my strongest elite minion, so I added it to Rook. Elite Minion Level Up, Rook. Health increase. Speed increase. Attack increase. New ability, Fury. It seemed to be quite a significant buff to my minion. I looked in the shop to see if I could buy another, but it seemed that I could only buy one at a time. Since I still had plenty of tokens to spare, I decided to buy the Warrior Minion recipe. After buying the recipe, I saw that it required 1,000 rocks, 50 meat and 25 iron in order to craft a single Warrior Minion. It was quite a steep price, but Warrior Minions were certainly quite useful. They were much stronger than combat scout minions in combat and leveled up at a faster rate. However, currently, all the meat that I collected was being spent on scout minions, and I would be forced to change my coding. I opened the code menu for my minion manager. On. Craft. Scout minion 80%. Warrior minion 20%. I was building my army, so I decided that 1/5 of all resources would be spent on crafting warrior minions. Who knows how difficult it would be to defeat the cloak's strongest weapon. At this moment, I needed numbers and strength. I continued to cut down trees for a little while as the sun slowly set over the horizon. Plus 22 wood. As the sky slowly darkened, I lit the fire and waited as my minion manager provided me with the end-of-day report. I've got the end-of-day report. End-of-day report. Total resources gathered. X23 75 wood. X21 leaves. X23 meat. X901 rocks. X12 ultra-hardened stone. X62 iron. X11 gold. X65 coal. Other. X59 scout minions crafted. X12 a minion huts built. As night slowly approached, Chloe also returned from gathering resources and made her way over to me. She didn't look tired at all. I guess that was the nature of her ability. Smiling and bouncing, she walked over and sat down next to me. Hey, William. You're back. Do you want to see what I collected? Yeah. She took some resources out of her inventory and handed them to me. In total, she gave me 50 iron, 4 diamonds, and 1 platinum. I took them out of her hands and added them to my inventory. I now had 124 iron in total. I'd still need 376 more iron until I had enough to craft all of the hardened iron I needed for the power flux. I guess I'd have to wait a few more days. By the way, Chloe, what rank are you on the global rankings? Me? I'm currently 278th. I see. I wasn't sure whether she was lying or not, but the rank sounded pretty accurate, if not a little too high. In relation, there were some things that I wanted to clear up with her. Chloe, what's the real reason for you following me? What? Are you saying that I'm lying to you? All I'm saying is that your original reason was pretty superficial. Don't you group up with people because you find them interesting? I also do that to an extent, but not in the same way as you. I recruited people based on my assumptions of their strength, so you could technically say I group up with people I find interesting. However, Chloe was not at all similar to me in that respect. She appeared to have grouped up with me due to some personal whim which I am still not aware of. I guess there's no point lying, but are you sure you want to know? What do you mean? I was going to tell you everything sometime in the future, but now you're jumping the gun. Well, I don't really care that much, but I'd prefer you tell me. Okay, then I guess I'll satiate your curiosity for now. Beside the flickering fire, Chloe looked me in the eyes. Like you, I also worry about life here. It's not all easy for me either, you know. So you grouped up with me because you thought I was strong? That's what I said the first time we met, didn't I? I still don't believe it. You had no proof that I had any strength. I could tell by your personality. I don't believe I acted very confidently or in a way that would make you think that. Well, it was mainly because of your expression. It was cold and unchanging. You're definitely not normal. That's not a very nice thing to say. It's the truth, you know it too, don't you? I thought about it for a little. It wasn't the first time someone said that to me. But even so, maybe I'd just given up. Well, I was willing to take the gamble. At worst, I could have just left if it turned out you were a suicidal maniac. I suppose. Actually, William, I have a question for you. What is it? Who are you? I don't understand the question. Yes, you do. The night fell upon us as the sky became practically pitch black. The fire was illuminating the area and providing warmth for us. It was quite a magical atmosphere for such a conversation. My minions had returned and were guarding the camp. What do you mean? I asked. Why do you always play dumb? You know I can tell, right? I mean, I'm not sure what you want me to say. She sighed. I used to think I was pretty apathetic and borderline psychopathic, but compared to you, I feel as if you fit those categories much more. Just because I look at things pragmatically. I mean, I guess, but it's not just that. Your behavior, your decision-making, it all feels distinctly heartless. Well, you were the one that asked me to leave a girl out to die in the woods. But I had good reason for that. I didn't tell you at the time, mainly because I assumed you wouldn't believe me, but that girl was seriously trying to kill me. It didn't look like it. That's because she was new to combat and couldn't wield her knife of Kali effectively. If she was proficient in martial arts, then I would have been in big trouble. If so, how did she manage to fulfill the condition to get a knife of Kali in the first place? There are many ways to kill someone, you know? She could have murdered someone in their sleep or killed someone who was weak and injured. If she was so incapable at combat, why would she try to fight you in the first place? It was likely because she saw my system and thought I'd be an easy target and easy resources. That doesn't explain her relationship with Rosie. Hey, now I still don't really know much about Rosie. You should understand it much more clearly. You were the one who was easily able to deduce that she was a traitor after all. We'll leave it at that for now. I realized that I hadn't begun cooking dinner, so I took out some meat and began roasting it on top of the fire as usual. William. Yes? What was your life like back on Earth? It wasn't that interesting. I'm sure it was. Basically, I went to school, got bad grades and got bullied. Now that's a lie. What makes you say that? I've been around you long enough to know that that's simply not true. Well, I guess we'll never know then. Hey, aren't we trying to build trust with each other right now? Are we doing that? Why did you ask me for my reasons for joining the group if that was not your intention? I was just bored. You're so hard to read. I'm really not. After that, I did some reorganization of my minions as we prepared for the night. The next difficulty increase hadn't come yet, so I was still pretty relaxed in terms of sleeping through the night. I was awoken by the sound of Mayuri's voice. However, she was nowhere to be seen. Is this something related to the loss of my memories? Slowly, I stretched my back and climbed out of bed. I had gotten quite used to the bed that I made a few days ago with whatever random materials I had. Honestly, I've practically forgotten what a normal bed feels like. I made my way to Chloe's hut and knocked on the door. The moment my knuckles hit the wood, she opened the door. Hey, are you ready to fight the boss of the cloaks? Yep. I've been thinking about it all night. You're a psychopath. Hee. There was nothing else for us to prepare, so alongside my minions, we began trekking into the forest. The ground was still wet from the early morning dew. The previous days, I had sent several scout minions to explore the area. We managed to find the main cloak hideout as it was pretty close to the other settlements they had taken over. There was a good chance that they knew we were coming since they likely saw my scouts and noticed that a few of their settlements had been overrun. On the way to their base, we made a quick pit stop at Camp B. As we made our way out of the forest, we were greeted by the traveling merchant, Zhang. He had been patiently waiting for us. As he saw the giant army of minions behind me, he appeared physically taken aback. Holy moly, why do you have such a big army? It's my system, anyways. I'll be initiating the trade now. Trading. X1, Recovery Potion, 5 tokens. X1, Enhanced Fertilizer, 4 tokens. X1, Music Player plus 2 discs, 24 tokens. I looked at the items. Alright, I'll buy all of them. All of them? Are you sure? It is what I said I'd do. Are you going to level up soon? I should level up in 2 days if I sell out every day. What do you gain? I get an extra item in my shop. That'll be useful. Well, I'll be seeing you again tomorrow then. Suddenly, I received another notification. Trade. +1, Recovery Potion. +1, Enhanced Fertilizer. +1, Music Player plus 2 discs. 33 tokens. After the items were transferred to my inventory, I called my minions and we began walking back into the forest. Zhang was also leaving for wherever he stayed. Chloe and I trudged through slippery vegetation and soft dirt. It was slightly wet, likely from the rain last night as we slept. The main settlement was quite a distance away from our Camp A. The settlement was much closer to Camp C, so the trek would take at least an hour or so. It was especially hard since I needed to maneuver several hundred minions through the forest. Based on the information that my scout minions gave me, their settlement was quite big. It looked as if it housed several hundred people. It was going to be quite a battle. In total, I only had around 300 minions in total and around 60% of them were combat-oriented. I had no idea if I was underestimating our enemy or not. However, I assumed that one of my combat minions would be strong enough to take out a standard, non-combative human. Chloe and my 3 elite minions were the main force that was going to be going against their strongest soldiers. I didn't have much choice, so I'd likely have to fight their strongest weapon. I managed to deduce that this weapon of theirs was likely the person named Callum French. He was the only person who used to be on the global rankings and is no longer there. I had no idea what his strength was or what his system was, but with our limited resources, I'd have to face him alone. I was going to need to get as much power as I could from Mayuri. Normally, I'd like to fight with only my minions if possible, but I heard that Callum had some sort of ability which is able to kill big groups of enemies. It was annoying, but I had to deal with it if I wanted to take them out for good. Time was also of the essence. As much as I'd like to sit back and build up my forces, they, with over 100 people, would likely scale at a much faster rate than I could. It was necessary that I defeat them now and take everything they have. In this world, if you fall behind, you'll simply become food for bigger tribes and stronger people. We continued traveling through the difficult terrain. I had a few of my scout minions lead me, but there was still the risk of getting lost. We needed to move at a slow enough rate so that everyone would be able to keep up and stay as a group. The last thing I want is to be identified by some cloaks and have my minions picked off in the forest. After almost 40 minutes, we arrived at Camp C. I already had a few minions situated here just to take care of the camp, since otherwise it would be completely abandoned. I brought a few more warrior and scout minions into my main force and organized them so that they fit into the army. Chloe and I took a quick rest break and I made sure that all of my minions were still here. This is cool, it's like we're marching into war. I mean, that's basically what we're doing. After a short pit stop to rest our legs, we got up again and continued the march towards the main cloak settlement. I decided to use my standard flux so I could speed up the travel time. It increased the speed of all of my minions by 20%, so we were quickly on our way. Ideally, I would have liked to have upgraded it to a power flux, but I didn't have enough resources and it'd likely take a couple of days minimum. Standard flux activated, duration, 30 seconds. With manhwarecap clattering on my hips, I moved forward, step by step. This was going to be the biggest challenge yet. We trekked through the forest for almost 30 more minutes. However, as I marched my army through the dense vegetation, I noticed some movement in the distance. "I think I saw a cloak," said Chloe. "Do you think you can take them down? If there's only one, then it'll be easy." It took a step back as Chloe summoned her platinum sword and ran towards the figure in the distance. It didn't seem like I was going to need to do anything for the time being. My 3 elite minions were standing by my side and my army of over 300 minions was scattered behind me in between the trees. A few moments later, Chloe returned with her blade slightly stained with red. I assumed we're getting quite close if there are cloaks moving around here. We continued our march forwards and I followed my scout minions, which were leading the way. Just a few minutes later, we caught sight of another cloak walking around in the distance. Once again, I sent Chloe over to take them out. With a little miniature commotion and a few swings of her sword, the cloak was defeated and she returned with what little spoils of war she managed to get from them. "These guys barely have anything," she said. "Well, I guess it's hard to split resources between so many people." There was much I didn't know about the social structure of the cloak society. Just based on my previous encounters, it seemed that the normal cloak hardly had anything on their body at all times. A step up from that, the soldiers had only some wood and rocks and a few other random resources. Only when you got to the leaders, where you finally received some decent loot from their death. As we traveled forwards, we killed a few more stray cloaks who were hanging around the forest. Around 10 minutes later, there was a very large clearing at the end of the path we were walking. Behind the row of trees, there lay a large open space. Just a little bit ahead of that was a huge village, with people walking around everywhere. "Are you ready?" I asked. "I'm always ready." I moved all of my archery scout minions and positioned them all on the edge of the forest, looking down at the settlement. I left Knight, with the Minion leadership ability, to control them and provide supporting fire for the main troops. Suddenly, it appeared that we had been noticed by the cloaks and they were now frantically preparing to fight. They rushed around the settlement, grabbing weapons and forming units. In turn, I began bringing my main force to the front in preparation for the push. On my command, all of my archery-oriented minions began firing down at the settlement. Arrows rained down like a thunderstorm and the entire area was coated with an endless number of arrows. It was a scene right out of a medieval battle. The arrows fell upon the cloaks, who began dropping like flies as the arrows stabbed into their bodies. Not long after, however, they began making counter-preparations to defend themselves from my arrow rain. From shields to defensive systems, my attacks were getting less and less effective. "It's about time to push." I drew my manhwarecap and looked down at the cloak settlement. They were very quickly adapting against my archers, so I decided that it was time to enter. With my command, all of my minions began charging down the hill at the same time. It was like an ant hill had been stood on and ants were flowing out of it like a waterfall. Down the hill, my forces began scattering as combat broke out between our two sides. Chloe had separated from me and was going in a different direction. I guess I'd be pushing straight through the middle as she took care of the sides. Bishop and Rook were still beside me, so I sent them into the action. Swords clashed on the boundary of their settlement. None of my minions had made it into their village or their huts, as they had a very large number of humans outside defending against my attack. Swords clashed as the entire area was filled with the sounds of shouting and fighting. It was so chaotic I could hardly tell what was going on. I ordered several of my minions nearby to push through a small gap in their line. With the help of Rook, I managed to create a small opening in their front line where I began funneling troops into their village. They quickly sent more reinforcements over to try to push us back, but I managed to make it through and I had now made it into their village. I weaved around their huts as several cloaks chased me through their settlement. I hid behind a hut as several cloaks ran by. In one swing of my sword, I cut down 3 cloaks, and the people fell to the ground, holding their bodies in pain. I had no time to dwell on my kills, however. There were already more people coming after me. I was now in a position where I wasn't able to directly control my minions. I sent a general command for them to increase their aggression, and I also reactivated my standard flux. Standard flux activated, duration, 30 seconds. With no time to stand around, I continued to run between their huts. I was trying to find Callum and their main elite force. If I was able to take them down, then the entire battle would be as good as over. However, as I searched around the area, I was not able to find any sign of their existence. Was it possible that they weren't situated here? They definitely were. It was stated on the map, and also just the pure number of people in this settlement should have implied that this was their main base. If they had another base with even more people, there would be no chance I would be able to defeat them. I took out the cloaks who were chasing me and continued to look around the area. In the distance, I saw a boy. His hair was flipped over one of his eyes. His entire presence emanated a sense of despair. Just above his shoulder, there was a ball of light. It fizzed like a sphere of plasma. There was no doubt about it. That was Callum French. I took cover behind one of the huts as I regained my composure. I would need everything I could possibly muster in order to defeat him. All of my minions were preoccupied with fighting their army, so the only thing I could do was to get power from Mayuri. I placed my 2 hands on the handle of Manhwarecap and dragged it out of its sheath. Mayuri, give me more power. She appeared once again, as an almost hologram-like projection. You just focus on swinging that sword, I'll take care of his attacks. Huh? In return, I'll be taking some memories. Wait, what do you mean by you'll take care of his attacks? I'll temporarily remove his memories of how to use his system. You can do that? It's the same concept as system disable, only on a larger scale. I'll be taking a lot of memories though. That's fine. I don't need my memories. With that, Mayuri vanished into the air. I felt as if my entire body was surging with strength. My blade lit up with a rich purple aura. This was it, this was Mayuri's full power. With all my strength, I will defeat Callum. I walked around the corner gripping Manhwarecap in my hands. It seemed that Callum had already seen me coming. He was already looking in my direction when I showed myself from behind the hut. Suddenly, all the balls of light around him disappeared. Huh? What is this? He exclaimed. It's game over, Callum French. Who are you? Me? Oh, I'm William Hunter, a measly human who used to be bullied. He seemed to be in a panic due to being unable to use his system. After a few moments, however, he seemed to calm down. You've got a demonic sword, I see, he said. You think that just because you somehow disabled my system, you'll be able to win. He pulled out a weapon which was attached to his back. It was a majestic sword with an incredibly long blade. Around the blade, a swirling black aura circled it. Meet Tengen, what's the name of your demon? It's Mayuri. Mayuri, I see, well let's see who's stronger. I planted my back foot into the ground and tensed my entire body. With Manhwarecap raised in front of me, I braced for his attack. However, instead of charging towards me, he took slow, deliberate steps, closing the distance between us. What? All of a sudden, he quickened his pace and swung his sword from quite a distance away. I jumped back as fast as I could and the tip of the blade just barely missed my neck. I felt the breeze from the attack brushing against the skin on my neck. I noticed a small opening and tried to close the distance as fast as I could. I rushed in, however, in the next movement, he had already swung his Tengen towards me again. As fast as I could, I blocked the attack with Manhwarecap, however, the weight of the collision caused me to lose my balance for a few seconds. As I watched his next attack flow towards me, I was forced to back away and increase the distance between us. At this rate, I'd never get an opportunity to get close enough to hit him with a strike. He appeared to be much more proficient with his weapon, easily swinging it around like a toy. Every single time, I was forced to stay on the defensive, blocking his attacks with not much space to spare. His constant swings forced me to keep walking backwards, in order to not be caught in his strike range. I couldn't close the distance. For minutes straight, I constantly attempted to block his attacks, watching his movements and positioning Manhwarecap. Slowly, I was being worn down by the never-ending barrage of Tengen. For a brief moment, however, his attack stopped. At first, I saw it as an opportunity to close in, but after some observation, I realized that he was charging an ability of some sort. I braced myself and raised manhwarecap. He raised his giant sword over his head and it appeared to be gathering some sort of energy. Chain him down, Tengen. I tried to move but it felt as if I was being held still. I couldn't move my arms or my legs. As I looked up, I saw magical chains holding onto my limbs. I ripped away as hard as I could, however, I didn't seem to be able to break free. You stood no chance against me, William. The chains shook as I pulled, however, they did not break. No matter how hard I tried to pull my arms away, I couldn't get them free. Shit. I'm stuck. I frantically looked around to see if there was anything I could do. It seemed that Callum was bathing in the sight of me being completely immobilized. He took a few steps towards me and raised his sword once again. Fuck. With the tiny amount of space in which I could move my wrist, I jerked my right arm. Cut him down, Mayuri. A shockwave of wind was sent barreling towards him. It seemed to have taken him by surprise as he quickly raised Tengen to block the attack. His large weapon was nowhere as effective as mine in terms of defense and the shockwave blew him to the ground. I could hear him laughing as he pulled himself up from the dirt. Nice one, I wasn't expecting that. Still, I couldn't break free. My wrist and ankles were beginning to hurt from the stress of constantly smashing into the seemingly unbreakable chains. He patted the dirt off of his clothes and walked towards me again. You know, William, I feel like we could have been friends. Huh. I don't know why, but something about you is very similar to myself, he continued. It's such a shame that you're attacking me now, isn't it? My arms and legs were still completely immobile. I need more strength. Mayuri, give me more strength. At my request, she appeared in front of me once again, assuming a spirit-like form. Oh ho? Are you sure you want more power? Look at my situation. Ah, I suppose so. Be warned, there are costs for your recklessness. She leaned down and touched my forehead with her finger. I'll be taking some more memories. As she vanished into the air once again, I jerked my hand away from the chain. This time, I managed to break the chain that at one point seemed invincible. The metallic material shattered as I ripped my arm away. Now that my right arm was free, I raised manhwarecap and sliced off the rest of the chains. You're a sly one, exclaimed Callum. He didn't seem particularly worried by my escape from his chains. Based on his actions, it seemed he had almost utter confidence in his strength, looking down on me the entire time. Your ego is going to be the death of you. He swung Tengen at me as I easily deflected the attack with the now strengthened manhwarecap. The two blades clashed in the middle and a huge wave of energy was dispersed from the collision. I felt a huge gust of wind brush past my body as I recovered from the momentum. I concentrated my thoughts and tensed my body as I held manhwarecap in front of me. I held onto the grip as hard as I could. Cut him down, Mayuri. I swung the blade and a thick purple aura gathered all around it. The energy around the blade felt much denser and more potent than usual. It was the strongest I had ever felt. As air swirled around the edge of the blade, a huge shockwave was produced as air concentrated in front of the blade. The massive wave of wind launched at Callum pummeled through the air. It caused a visible distortion in the air as it traveled towards him. He tried to block with Tengen, but it was to no avail. The shockwave smashed into him and sent him crashing to the ground, even losing grip of his weapon. System disable wasn't going to have any effect on him since his system had already been disabled by Mayuri. However, I had gained the precious time and space that I needed in order to close the distance and get in close with my shorter manhwarecap. I rushed in as fast as I could, stomping my feet into the hard, loose dirt, kicking up clouds of dust. This would be my only opportunity to break through. My arms were beginning to hurt from overuse. Callum's longer blade and more proficient swordsmanship has kept the upper hand against me the entire fight. Now, as he quickly tried to recover his positioning, I had my chance. He got back to his feet and grabbed his sword. However, I had managed to significantly close the distance, and now he was within range of manhwarecap. We traded a few swings as our swords clashed with one another. However, it was clear that his larger weapon made defending quite awkward. His fighting style relied on constantly being on the attack. Now that he was on defense, I had the upper hand. As he stepped back and tried to increase the distance, I rapidly pushed in and constantly harassed him with attacks. All of a sudden, he raised Tengen and shouted, "Chain him down, Tengen." As I tried to rush forwards, I suddenly felt a huge weight on my ankle. He had managed to conjure another chain which chained my ankle to the ground. It was obvious that his strength was also waning since his ability wasn't as strong as before. I quickly cut it with manhwarecap and continued to push forwards. However, in the short amount of time he managed to gain from chaining me, he managed to increase the distance between the two of us by a significant margin. Shit. I had just lost the opening to attack. With the increased distance, he was once again able to begin attacking me and I was forced onto the defense. The blades of Mayuri and Tingan smashed into each other as I frantically maneuvered in order to block his constant attacks. The loud sounds of metal-on-metal clashing filled the area. I needed to get another opening. I decided to try to pull the distance between the two of us far enough so that I could manage to use my trump card. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed in horror as I began running back towards one of the huts. As expected, he began chasing me and the two of his began running through the open settlement. However, I had a plan. He was faster and stronger than me, so I had no chance if I just kept running. I opened my inventory. In my hand, I summoned one of my grenades. Before he could even see what was going on, I bit off the safety pin and threw it at his feet. As he watched the green tool of destruction drop beneath him, his face showed genuine despair for the first time in the entire fight. His face contorted as he panicked, looking down with absolute fear. It was over. Tengen. Chain it. Chain the grenade. With all his remaining strength, he conjured several chains and they bound onto the grenade. For some reason, the grenade didn't blow up even after several seconds, but it was clear that he used all of his energy to use that last ability. As a result, he didn't have anywhere enough strength in order to fight against me. I slowly walked towards him as he looked at me with eyes that looked as if they had given up. His entire body was slouched down and he dropped to his knees as he witnessed what was about to happen. He showed no resistance, no anger, no hate, just defeat. In another timeline we may have been friends. I've made enough mistakes in this world. Trusting others has led me to nothing but issues. I raised Mayuri. This is an execution fit for a warrior. The blade fell upon his body. That was tiring. Slowly, I put the bloodied Mayuri back into my sheath and finally, I was able to take a breather. I looked around at the small battles which were still taking place between my minions and the cloaks. My legs were sore, my arms were sore, and I was forced to take a seat on the ground and recover from the battle. I took the bandage given to me by the mummies and wrapped it around the wound I received from Tingan. As I put my arms to support my body, I felt a sharp pain in my left wrist. Shit, my wrist's broken. Out here in this apocalyptic world, there were no hospitals or even medical centers for that matter. I had no way of healing this broken wrist naturally. Without any other choice, I took my recovery potion out of my inventory and drank its contents. In an instant, all of my wounds had healed significantly. As I put pressure on my wrist, it seemed that it had also mostly healed. There was still some significant soreness, but I could tell that the break had been healed. After taking a short break on the ground, I got back up and began walking back toward the battlefield. I looked at my advanced system control. Advanced system controls. Resource division, 121 minions. 3x Woodcutter Minion. 11x Miner Minion. 52x Scout Minion, Mining. 25x Scout Minion, Woodcutting. 23x Scout Minion, Resource Gathering. 6x Scout Minion, Hunting. 1x Scout Minion, Farming. Combat Division, 55 minions. 1x Advanced Warrior Minion. 1x Warrior Minion. 20x Scout Minions, Swordplay. 22x Scout Minions, Archery. 2x Scout Minion, Combat. 9x Basic Scout Minion. Utility Division, 26 minions. 13x Builder Minion. 10x Scout Minion, Utility. 2x Basic Scout Minion. 1x Minion Manager. I was expecting to take some pretty big losses. To be completely honest, the losses weren't as great as I had expected. All three of my elites were still alive and the cloak's main forces had been mostly destroyed. I walked around to observe my remaining forces. The last few members of the cloaks were being killed and it was pretty clear that my victory was coming. In the distance, I saw Chloe in a fight with a man in a business suit. That doesn't fit the clothing scheme? I drew Mayuri once again and made my way over. It seemed that she was struggling quite a bit. From what I could see, the man had a very similar fighting style to the white cloak that I fought in the previous camp. He wasn't using any weapons and appeared to have superhuman-like strength. Chloe was wielding a sword in one hand and a shield in the other. The two of them continuously clashed with each other without any major advances. The man continuously punched and kicked Chloe, with her blocking most of his attacks with her diamond shield. The only issue was that she couldn't land a single hit on him. His movements and speed were far too great and she wasn't able to swing her sword fast enough. Just as I finished one fight, I'm now entering another. The man backed up as Chloe advanced on him. I charged in from behind and swung Mayuri at him, catching him off guard. He quickly launched himself to the side in order to evade my attack. The blade of manhwarecap managed to glide through his clothing, cutting him in the hip. "Did you take out the big boss?" asked Chloe. "I guess so." "Hee, so you are strong." Before the two of us had time to set up a tea party, the man rushed toward me and raised his leg. I covered my side with my blade and blocked his kick. Chloe then closed in and swung her platinum sword at him. However, it was to no avail. This guy's really fast. As I recovered my posture and raised my manhwarecap again, I decided to come up with a strategy. At this rate, neither of us was going to get any fatal blows on the man. "Chloe, use your bow instead." She quickly returned her shield and sword to her inventory and summoned her bow. I rushed in with my manhwarecap and tried to land some hits on the man, but he dodged all of them as expected. However, he suddenly fell to the ground in pain as an arrow lodged itself into his leg. Seeing the opening, I ran in to finish him off. However, he managed to get up and kick me in the side with his other leg. The force of the impact made me lose my balance and I was forced to stop for a moment. He then ran towards me with the arrow still lodged in his leg and came in with a hook punch. I raised my manhwarecap in order to block it, but the impact still hurt my head. All of a sudden, the man stopped as he held his chest in pain. Chloe had fired another arrow, hitting him right in the chest. It was finally game over for the cloaks. As he looked up at me, I kneeled down and shoved the blade of my manhwarecap in front of his neck. "Now, you'll be kind enough to tell me where you guys put Ilrich, right? I don't know who they are." An elf. I guess that's the best way I can describe him." "You, kill me." Well, it looked like I wasn't going to be getting any more information out of this man. They couldn't have been that hard to find considering they're likely in this village somewhere. I could always just look for them by myself anyways. As he wished, I raised my manhwarecap and swung it down, killing him in the strike. Chloe made her way over to me and leaned on my shoulder. So is it over now?" "For the most part. Aside from a few stragglers, the battle was basically over. Quite a few of the remaining cloaks had deserted anyways, so all that was left was a village filled with the bodies of the slain." Suddenly, I felt an unknown presence speaking to me. "The killer winter is incoming. Conditions will be extremely harsh. You might want to dispose of anything unnecessary now, otherwise, you won't realize it until it's too late." That's true. After this experience, I've realized that some people are completely unnecessary. In fact, most people are unnecessary. I've got myself, and I've got my minions. That's all I really need. As I looted the dead body of the man in the suit I just slew, I saw something very intriguing. X76, Enhancement Agents. X74, Wood. X30, Leaves. X9, Meat. X8, Rocks. That was all he had. I collected all of his items before Chloe had a chance to look at them. I also managed to score a few interesting items from Callum. However, the most valuable item I managed to collect from him was his demonic weapon. Hidden on my back, underneath my shirt, Ting and Corinne, was attached. Turns out you can wield more than one demonic weapon at a time. I've realized that some things are more annoying than useful. Constantly trying to appease them was an error on my side. This killer winter, I'll be living alone.
Thank you so much. Visit us more for more novels, please. Like, subscribe,